Hey everyone, welcome out to episode 71 of our Nerd Named Mark podcast. If you're listening to this, thank you for coming back and listening. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. It's been a slow start getting the YouTube channel back up. Obviously, all of you who are listening, you've been here for weeks and weeks. And I appreciate you guys coming out and checking out another episode of a Nerd Named Mark podcast. It's going to be a good episode. It's going to be a big episode just from the standpoint of comic books alone, because I finally got all caught up, got some back issues, and got some more newer. This was a good week for comics. And I got a nice little hefty stack right here. Uh, big issue came out that I've been waiting for. We're going to talk about that in a little bit when we get into the comic books. But just to give you a sprinkle of seasoning, a little hint at the main topic this week, I'm going to be talking about the Mortal Kombat movie and BlizzCon, the digital BlizzCon event. They made some announcements. I was excited. And yeah, so, it's going to be a dual topic. Going to briefly touch on both those because there is some stuff from Blizzard I honestly did not care about. Spoiler, the only thing I cared about was Diablo 4 and 2, which I'm going to get into. And then the Mortal Kombat trailer, which you haven't seen it already on the channel. I have my trailer reaction and also kind of like a little breakdown, but not fully, not in details I did with the Godzilla versus Kong trailer or the Monster Hunter trailer. This is more just a general like reaction, couple pauses here and there, but definitely excited to talk about Mortal Kombat and also just HBO Max in general with just the deliciousness that we're going to be getting all year from them. The gift of HBO Max with these movies, because theaters are, I know some of your theaters are open. For here, out here in San Diego where I'm at, no, not open. We have a drive-in, a couple of them actually, but they're not really playing like good stuff. Like the dual movie is not really doing it for me. It's like the combo that they're doing, and I'm like, eh. I was really hoping because I'd love to see Zack Snyder's Justice League at a drive-in. That would be amazing. But I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. We're going to jump right into the episode, and because it's smaller, I'm going to go over video games first. And because I'm not really playing a lot of video games right now, I'm going to be honest with you. I started playing on the Switch Little Nightmares, the first one, because it was on sale, and even though I have it on PC and Xbox, I never played it. So I was like, let me play Little Nightmares. Let me finally play this because Little Nightmares 2 came out and I got myself a physical copy of that. And I was like, you know what? I want to play the first one. And visually, the atmosphere, the tone, like for a game with no real, like, full, like, combat per se, to an extent, there is, like, actions that you could do when you hold objects, but it's, like, so good. The atmosphere, the tones, the music. It visually, even on the Switch, handheld mode looked amazing. I'm definitely trying to play it like full ultra settings on PC at some point as well because I just want to. It's a game I'm gonna play more than once. So those are the two main games I've been playing. Obviously, dabbling in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Sword and Shield still with Dynamax raids because trying to get some shiny uh, Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon. Sword and Shield still salty about the quality of that game that they gave us, and especially with the DLC, how lackluster it was. So I'm just like, still bitter taste in my mouth with Pokemon Sword and Shield. If you go back and listen, I don't know what episode it was. I did a full breakdown review of like the DLC, just the game as a whole, base game and the two expansions. And I'm not saying I tore it to shreds, but I will say I was very unhappy, and I still am. Even all this time later, like looking back, like I'm still unhappy with the product that was given to us by Game Freak and Nintendo. I was like, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee was better than Sword and Shield, and that's just a Pokemon Go version of Gen One from like catching and this and that. And I'm like, how is this? This even looks better, honestly, to me. But you go back and listen to that episode. It was not a really long episode, but it was a long episode in the fact that I just ripped it apart. So, other than that, for games, not really playing anything. Like, I haven't had time between work. Uh, if you've been looking at watching any of the YouTube videos, I actually did start playing this fan made Pokemon game called Pokemon Xenoverse. It's actually like Xenoverse per Asada, Asper, whatever. Like, I'm messing up the name of it. I'm butchering the name. Just type in Pokemon Xenoverse into Google. You'll find it. Or if you're on the YouTube channel, I have a link in the videos for it, every single one, because I think I have 4 parts up right now. If not, I have the 4th part that needs to go up, actually, so I got to edit that after this. The link to download the games in there. It's actually a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. And so yeah, that's really it for games. There are like my backlog of games. There's a lot of games I want to play, honestly. I just don't have time to play them. And or like I just don't have motivation from the standpoint of, okay, worked all day, I'm tired. Do I really want to jump into a JRPG right now? Do I really want to? Because I was going to start Final Fantasy 12 because it's on Game Pass for PC, and I was like, Ugh. I was like, well, I should finish Dragon Quest 11, and I'm like, I really am not feeling a JRPG right now. I'm not feeling any of the fighting games. It's not like, let me just pick up and play games right now for me, while I'm still getting adjusted to work and also all the video content I'm trying to produce right now, because I am taking YouTube very seriously with trying to get content up and going and quality. So recording, editing, everything else, it's not easy. And on top of streaming on Twitch, doing this podcast video and audio versions, you know, I'm not spreading myself thin. I'm at the right amount of time being utilized. It's just I don't have the extracurricular time to dedicate to like a JRPG or just a platformer. So the backlog of games has to stay on the backlog. It's on the back burner for a bit. I will eventually get back into them and start chipping away at them. But for the time being, just no. Especially reading comics. Like when I get into comics, you see all the comics I bought. Like I have a lot to read now because, as I've said previously, and this is a nice segue into the comic books, when I get comic books that I know are like 4 issue sets, 5 issue sets, just like side arcs and that, I don't read them as I'm pulling them. I wait until I have all 4 or 5 issues, then I sit down and read them all. And there's some comics I got this week that now have come to their finale of their arcs. So now it's like, okay, let's sit down and read them. And right off the bat, I was going to save the big release for last, but I can't because it's looking at me and I've already read it twice. I will most likely be having a spoiler video and audio version of my spoiler podcast episode for this comic. If you haven't already, the A Nerd Named Mark reviews, the RSS feed is now live. It's now available on all podcasting platforms except for Apple Podcast and iHeartRadio. I'm still waiting for the approval. They've been submitted, but they are available on everything else: Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public, Google Podcast, Podbean. So it's available on all those. So you just type in A Nerd Named Mark reviews. The first episode is now live. It was my review of the Monster Hunter movie. So if you haven't seen the video version of that, which is on this channel on YouTube, I actually have the audio version on the A Nerd Named Mark reviews RSS feed. But let's not waste any time. The Last Ronin #2 dropped, and holy tits. The last panel of issue 1 revealing who the last turtle was blew my freaking mind. And obviously, I'm not going to spoil it on here because I don't spoil anything on my main feed. That will be in the A Nerd Named Mark Reviews RSS feed podcast. Now, this book, The Last Ronin, is so good. I am a huge turtle fan. I don't pull turtles like the actual comics monthly from IDW or anything like that. Like I get the trades, mainly the hardcovers. Like they have a whole bunch of hardcover ones, and when I find them, I get them. That's how I usually read turtles because, like, money wise, this and that, it's more feasible to get trades. And there's no, if you're a comic book reader, collector, fan with us, there's no negativity if you only get trades. I have friends who only pull comics and don't pull trades. They're like, oh, you pull trades? Like, you don't pull the issues? Like, how do you wait that long and avoid spoilers? It's like, because I'm not looking for spoilers. That's how I'm not getting the spoilers. I can handle, not, going and, finding these spoilers. Like, I can wait on certain arcs. Now, The Last Ronin, I was honestly gonna wait until it was done to read it, but the day issue 1 came out, I was like, oh well, I bet you it's gonna give a cliffhanger. Then a few of my friends just like text messages, did you read The Last Ronin #1? And I'm like, no, I was gonna wait until the run is done. And they're like, you don't want to do this to yourself. Read it. So I did, and I was like, okay, this I'm not waiting. I'm reading it day 1 every time it comes out. So The Last Ronin #2, this was my baby of the week. Like this is, and I have the regular cover for it. I am gonna get a few of the variant covers. I do have a few for the first one. Uh, it's just I'm trying to limit my variant covers because anyone who knows me, you've seen if you follow me on social media, Twitter or Instagram at a nerd named Mark, I go heavy in the variants. In the last like 2 times I really went heavy at variants, it hurt my wallet because when I get variants, I'm not reselling them. I'm keeping them for myself. So with Marvel, when they released Ultraman, The Rise of Ultraman, I was pulling Scotty Young variants. I was pulling the actual TV series still shot variants. I was pulling all the variants for that. And I was like, this, I'm not going to lie, there's some variants in there that were like $130. And I was like, am I reselling these? No. I'm most likely going to get them graded and slabbed up and they're going to go on display. And then also, but from Boom Studios, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Anyone who knows me, huge Power Ranger fan, tokusatsu in general, anime, this and that. Power Rangers since issue 0. That's I attribute me getting back into comic books with Boom Studios and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers because there was a 5 to 6 year stint where I wasn't pulling comics at all. I think for around like 2011, 2012, I just stopped pulling comics. And oh, bless you. Why are you sneezing so much? Sorry, the kitten is sneezing like crazy today. She might have allergies. So yeah, with Boob Studios, like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I've said it on my Power Ranger Day episode. Like Boom Studios and Power Rangers got me back into comic book collecting, and then it was just a snowball effect. I was like, okay, let me get back into the like because the mass like there was a lot I wasn't pulling when like the new 52s and Marvel was resetting their stuff. Like I fell out of comics. I was like, you know what? Like I graduated college. I'm trying to do this game journalism thing. So I was heavily into video games and movies, reviewing, writing articles, this and that. I didn't have time to dive into comics. I'm still going back and reading a lot of stuff from the last like 10 years that I missed out on thanks to like Comixology Unlimited, Marvel Unlimited. They had the DC Universe app for comics. Like, so I'm still going back and I'm catching up on a lot of stuff, like arcs that I missed. So yeah, that's really my little spiel on the whole comic book thing and how Boom Studio. And so like the variant wise for Power Rangers, like I was going crazy. Now it's like connecting variants and legacy variants because Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers both have separate numbers, 4 and 4 right now. But they also have legacy ones that'll be like, oh well, this is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 57 or 58. So uh, I'm getting those. Hey, don't splash your water. You know, she's splashing her water again. But let's get right back in the next one. So I'm very curious with DC right now at Future State. So I picked up Nightwing #1 for Future State. I still have to read that. I'm gonna, catch up. Like Future State really I'm finding it intriguing right now. So far I've read Shazam and one of the Batman ones and the Green Lantern one. And then also I picked up Future State issue 2 for Swamp Thing. Anyone who knows me, huge Swamp Thing fan. One of my more popular episodes, one of I think the second or third episode I did for the podcast was Save Swamp Thing because once that show got canceled, there's season 1, and we know how that ended with them not really doing the finale the way they wanted, with like episodes getting cut and this and that. I was like, really? But I love Swamp Thing, huge fan. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna obviously the Future State stuff is really intriguing me. And continuing that trend, I got Robin Eternals 2 Future State. I love the cover that I have. If you're watching the video, this is a really cool cover. I love it. I'm a huge Robin fan. Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin. I know it's not popular that, that is the go-to Robin, but I'm sorry. Like, he's just, I kind of like the douchey characters. That's why, Damian Wayne is one of my favorite Robins. Because, I mean, it just is. He's a dick to people, and it's entertaining. Then continuing the trend, my last future state that I picked up, Shazam. This is issue 2, because honestly, right now for DC, outside of Swamp Thing, Shazam is the main DC comic I'm pulling outside of any events. Like, I'm just mainly pulling Shazam, and I'm slowly getting back into Green Lantern. It's going to be a process. The wounds are still healing from bad story lines and writing, but I'm slowly getting back into Green Lantern again. But Shazam has been the consistent on my pull list since they started it back over. And then they had that issue a few years back, I think in 2019, where it's like August to like October, they didn't release any. And then, like, I don't know, something was going on with the distribution and why they were holding off on Shazam. But I believe that's it for DC. That is actually it for DC. So we're gonna go into more of my uh indie, not indie because they're still major comics like publishers, but they're not Marvel or DC. They're not at the top two. And everyone's talking about the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, and I get it. Pokemon, big deal, 25th anniversary. But there's another 25th anniversary no one's talking about, and that's Transformers Beast Wars 25th anniversary. IDW started a run for Beast Wars, and I had to pick up issue 1. Beast Wars, well, I knew about Transformers as a kid from the toys, the movie, the 1986 movie, and, Gen 1 of the show. But Beast Wars was when I was like at that age where I was like 9, turning 10, and I was like old enough to like watch the show and get it and actually understand what I was watching. Whereas, when I'm 4 or 5 playing with Transformers, they're just toys that transform. And then there's a cartoon show, and the cartoon show is just pushing merch. And then I'm like, I need that vehicle. I need this one. Beast Wars was just like, okay, this is good. It's a point where I still have it over in my nice retro gaming area. I have the PlayStation 1 Beast Wars video game, which I tried playing, and it plays like hot garbage, but I still love it. And I may actually stream that at some point. So I'll keep you posted on that. And like I said before, with story arcs ending, and this is when I'm going to read them, from Archie Comics, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the finale of the Something Wicked 5-issue arc is now done. And if you're watching the video, the cover, I love the black and red and white on the cover. Archie Comics really impresses me with their cover, especially for Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. They have killed it with their covers, and ever since they brought Sabrina back. And I'm just like, these are good covers. They're very appealing. And the story and the writing has been really good too. Kelly Thompson is doing a phenomenal job. If you, yes, I will attribute Chilling Adventure of Sabrina to kind of why I was getting back into Sabrina comics, and also the Archie crossover, because I've been pulling Archie comics for a while now, years. But Sabrina comics right now, they're really good. I'm curious now. I can read this 5-issue Something Wicked arc, and that's what I've been waiting for. There's a lot of stuff I'm waiting for, because I'm just going to keep you tread, because honestly, I missed a perfect segue before. But Power Rangers number 4 dropped. That's right. And once again, connecting variant with Mighty Morphin number 4. A lot of connecting variants with these. Like, I was like, man, I might have to, like, so usually on my wall, I've remodeled my office area. Usually I had a lot of connecting variants on the wall, and I was, because I love connecting variants, I'm like addicted. Even bad runs, I'll get connecting variants. Like the original Sin, I got the whole connecting variant set for that from Marvel, even though that run was trash. I got was it the War of the Realms one that makes a big map of the realms? I got that connecting variant, and I was always like, I'm gonna put those on the wall. Thanks to Collector Mount, which is a non-sponsored plug, they have those invisible wall mounts that I've talked about in the past. I was like, I'm gonna use all those. I'm gonna put all the connected variants on the wall. Then I realized how many I had, and I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't put them all on the wall, because that will take up the whole entire living room if I really thought about it. Then another 4-issue arc that has ended is the Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons. Now, this I'm actually really excited to read. One, as a Dungeons and Dragons fan, even though I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons since like 2008, 2009, when I was done with college, didn't have time to play Dungeons and Dragons. Never got back into it. Was a huge fan though, and I was like, you know what? Like, I love Stranger Things. I've been pulling all the arcs and this and that since the comic book started, because they're doing a really good job adding lore to the world of this TV show. Because it's obviously it's just a show. There's no movie. There's nothing else really tying into it. So these comics have been really good at adding lore, building to the world, building to the characters and everything going on in the Stranger Things universe. I highly recommend them. I haven't read the Dungeons and Dragons, but the science camp one was great, especially when you want to know what Dunstan was up to when he was at, science camp between season 2 and 3. So I highly recommend you check out the Stranger Things comics. They are from Dark Horse, so they should be, readily available at any local comic book shop, or you can get the trades on Amazon, local comic book shop, Barnes and Noble. If you are gonna buy, comic books, I always tell everyone, first thing you do, go check your local comic book shop, support your small local businesses. Then you go to, a Barnes and Noble or Amazon, but always check your local comic book shop. And if they don't have it, they can order it for you. It helps them out, especially with everything going on. Like, I made it my duty to really try and support my local comic book shop in the last year as much as possible. If it was trades I needed and they didn't have it, I would order it through them. If it was back issues I needed, they had other locations, they were finding them. I went out of my way to make sure that I was getting my things from them, whether it was Pokemon cards, some of my Lightning collection figures, trades, comics, pop vinyls, like collectibles, because most of them they can order them for you. So yeah, first thing you should do is always check out your local comic book shop. Then, if they can't get it for you, or if you can't get it in a timely manner the way you want it, Amazon, a lot of the trades are prime shipping. You can get them next day or 2 days later. Barnes & Noble has a really good selection as well. There have been a few times where I had to go to Barnes & Noble to get something because I couldn't. And yeah, so that's my little spiel about supporting local businesses. Next up, I really need to stop gushing over Daddy Cates' Thor, but we are finally at part 4 of the Prey story arc. And that's something I'm probably going to do when the whole Prey arc is over. I'm going to definitely do a video on that because Thor is so good. Daddy Cates killing it with Thor. And that's all I'm going to say because I keep talking about that. Every time a new Thor issue comes out, I'm just like, ooh, Thor, Daddy Cates. Hell yeah, let's read this forever. And lastly, the last comic book. I know we're finally there at the end of the road. I have my Miles Morales Spider-Man number 23. Now, Miles Morales has been a really good run. Like I tell everyone, and I've said it on the past on the podcast, I wasn't a big Miles fan. I wasn't a fan of the Marvel Ultimate Universe in general anyways. And, I still regret not checking out Into the Spider-Verse until it was video on demand, but it was so good. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give Miles Morales a chance in comic form. Let me just start. Let me read it. Let me get into this, and it's been really good. The first 4 or 5 issues that when I picked them up, they were already 6 or 7 issues in when it came out. When I got into it, anyways. So I picked up the first 7 issues, read them. I was hooked. It was slowly becoming one of my favorite Marvel runs right now. And from a Spider-Man standpoint, definitely one of my favorite Spider-Man runs also. So if you haven't checked out Miles Morales Spider-Man, definitely check that out. It's so good. If you're a Miles Morales fan, or if you're not a Miles Morales fan, you're on the fence, you're like, I could really care less about Miles Morales. That's how I was. The run actually is really good. It got me into Miles Morales, and he is a phenomenal Spider-Man. Dare I say, he's spectacular. All right, that was a cheesy pun. I apologize. I shouldn't have said it, but I did. We have to move on, move past it. We're all adults here, I think. Hope so. Let's just pretend the joke didn't happen. I tried. You can't blame me. That being said, that's it for comics. A lot of comics. Now, one more thing that I want to talk about that, I think I brushed on it briefly, is before I jump into BlizzCon and Mortal Kombat, the Digimon trading card game is back. A lot of distribution issues. I got lucky. I found 2 starter decks for Matt, and it's something I'm trying to hunt down. Apparently, it might be a month or two before I can get any more. Really upset about that. Just wanted to, brush on it and be like, hey, I want my Digimon TCG, only because a new expansion for Pokemon TCG came out, and everyone's losing their collective shit about it. And I can't find them anywhere. I don't even think my local Target is stocking Pokemon cards anymore. I think they just are done with it because their section has been empty for months. And I live near Target and I work near Target, and so I check whenever I get the chance, and nothing at all. So I was like, oh, well then, I guess I'm not gonna get any Pokemon cards or any Digimon cards, which I talked about last week on the whole Pokemon TCG. But I just thought I'd say, because a new set just came out and I can't find it anywhere. My local comic book shop has it, and I love to support them, but they're trying to get $10 a booster pack, and that is not happening to my wallet. Not $10 a pack. That is too much, and I get the demand, and that is helping them make their money back to offset with everything going on, but it's not going to be my money at all. So I'm just going to pass on that there. That's not happening. Now, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat. One of my guilty pleasure films to watch is the original Mortal Kombat movie. I loved it as a kid. One of my favorites. Still holds up really well. I love martial arts films. I've always been a fan of martial arts films. So Mortal Kombat was like in my wheelhouse as a kid. The new trailer dropped, and it's violent, it's bloody, and we got to see some fatalities at the end. I'm intrigued about the story. It is, I believe, coming out April 16th on HBO Max. So kudos on HBO Max. Can't say this enough. They gave us Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas. We got The Little Things, which is a really good like thriller detective film with Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, and Remy Malek. A really good film. We're gonna get Zack Snyder's Justice League. We're gonna get Godzilla versus Kong, and now we have the release date for Mortal Kombat of April 16th. And I'm like, man, the next 2 months are gonna be amazing for movies. I'm glad they're on a streaming service. I don't have to spend any money outside of my streaming service price. So I'm hyped for Mortal Kombat. And apparently, Zack Snyder, because he's doing that, what, 4 to whatever aspect ratio for Justice League, and he's doing a black and white version called Justice in Gray, and then he's also doing the same filming resolution style where you can see more. He's doing that also for Batman vs Superman, so that's pretty damn cool. And just staying on topic of Batman, isn't that Superman and Lois is about 3 days away from when this episode goes live. Uh, Very curious. I did a trailer reaction and breakdown on the YouTube channel. I'm genuinely excited to watch this show. I hope it's good. I hope it kind of brings the CW like Arrowverse, so to speak, like back up to prominence, because as of right now, most of their shows are very lackluster, and the viewership is going down. The quality of the writing is like just not there. And it got bright really quick because the kitten is playing with the blinds over there. For those of you who are watching, that is why they're just like this big, huge, like brightness just popped up. But yeah, I'm excited for Superman and Lois, and a lot of the DC stuff. And yeah, so that's it for those things. And I want to go to BlizzCon before we close everything out. Uh, so BlizzCon, they showed some stuff for Overwatch 2. I'm not a big Overwatch fan, never was, never will be. No offense, just not. It's not my cup of tea. Like, I have honestly the sealed PS4 collector's edition still in my closet because I got it cheap, and I was like, yeah, I'll play it. And then I'm like, never even opened it. Just couldn't get into it. I tried watching some streams of it, videos, just to see what the big deal was and the hype. I could see the appeal for some people, just no appeal for me. Then, we got some World of Warcraft announcements. I was like, yada, yada. MMOs to me, just, I'm out of that loop. I'm that phase of my life, decade plus time frame, just put into MMOs. I can't anymore. If I do return to an MMO, it's going to be Final Fantasy 14 when the new expansion comes out. That might get me back into an MMO. But the main thing I cared about was Diablo 4, because we got gameplay and footage of the Rogue, which I believe is the first time we've had Rogue since what, Diablo 2? And looked good. I was like, I want Diablo 4. And then I realized, like, we're not getting Diablo 4 this year. It's coming out next year. And I was like, my feelings are hurt. I want Diablo 4 so bad. I want to play it now. But in the meantime, we're getting a remastered Diablo 2. So that's going to hold me over for sure. It's going to be coming out this year. I don't believe there was an exact time frame of the release. You can pre-order it now on their website. It's going to be on PC, PS5, PS4, the Xbox Series consoles, and the Xbox One consoles, as well as the Nintendo Switch. And I'm a huge Diablo fan. I have hundreds of hours of Diablo 3 actually played on my Nintendo Switch. I have Diablo 3 on the Xbox and PS4 and on PC. I do like Diablo 3, but I've actually played it the most on the Switch. It was one of my most played games last year and in 2019. So, because I get that like every year, Nintendo does that thing where they say, "Hey, here's the most hours you put into a game, this and that." For 2 years straight, Diablo 3 was actually the most played game on my Nintendo Switch. This year so far, not so much. But after the Diablo 4 announcement and Diablo 2, I had that like hinkling and hankering to like jump back into Diablo 3. So I may be doing that soon. Just always a big fan of the action RPGs, dungeon crawling. Those, they're fun. They're time consuming, but they're not like you could do a quick run, you know, 10, 15 minutes, depending on your build and your gear. So Diablo, for a while, there was like really pick up and play for me. I wasn't marathon playing it, 10, 15 hour, like, hours a week. I was maybe playing like, hour here, half hour there. Diablo is just one of those games. I remember when Diablo 2 came out when I was a kid. I was young. Parents, got it for me. Like, it was different times back then. Mature rated games, this and that. Like, oh, it's just a video game. You know the difference between real world and fiction. So, this, none of the stuff is real, violent, whatever. Like, you could distinguish between the two. You're smart enough. And I was like, cool, thanks. Give me all this horror shit. Like, just inject it in my veins. I was like, demons? Hell? Ooh, fire? Okay. Oh, I got this. It also was one of those things that got me into like RPGs and tabletop and stuff like that. So Diablo, I attribute a lot of my nerdy, like, evolution of me as a nerd. Diablo and like Warcraft and Starcraft, like Blizzard helped shape me into the nerd I am for video games and tabletop and stuff like that. Not anime and stuff like that's a whole nother episode. The anime episode will happen eventually. But yeah, I'm really excited to see Diablo 2 when it comes out. Diablo 4, like, the more we're gonna keep getting information for it, the more I'm just gonna want that game. And then Mortal Kombat, I'm definitely gonna be doing a spoiler of that. I mean, before then, we do have Justice League and Godzilla vs. Kong. So we have a little bit of a wait until we get to those, but I cannot wait the next month or so from movies being released on streaming services is going to be just so good. And I wish Disney would do something about this because, like, Black Widow still has not been released. Like, I'm curious about that. That's a whole nother topic, a whole nother deep dive, a whole nother episode. We're just like, what's the deal with Black Widow? That's another movie I'm still waiting for. I'm hoping we get some information eventually on it. But that's Disney. That's not Warner Brothers and HBO and stuff. Who knows what they're doing. But hey, they gave us WandaVision, and WandaVision is amazing. And I've been biting my tongue to talk about WandaVision. And so that's definitely going to happen at some point when the season ends. I think there's only like 3 episodes left or so. So we're getting there. We're getting our show fixes, and I will be definitely covering those on here, probably on the review podcast, not this one, so you guys can be spoiler free. But with that being said, I thank you guys for checking out episode 71 of our Nerd Name Mark podcast. If you're listening to this, you can find the audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Podbean, all those. Just go to anchor.fm/ANNM podcast, and it'll show you all the different platforms you can listen to it on. You can also listen to it on Anchor if you want. And then also, A Nerd Named Mark Reviews. That is my review podcast that is available on all podcasting platforms except for Apple Podcasts. If you want to find that, you can go to anchor.fm/A Nerd Named Mark Reviews. Or you can just type in Nerd Named Mark Reviews. Wherever you listen to podcasts, it'll pop up. Like I said, the first episode is live right now with Monster Hunter. The next episode going up is most likely going to be WandaVision episode 7, as well as I'm going to have multiple episodes going live because, like I said, it's not going to be just weekly. It's going to be a time release. So it's like you might get 3 episodes in 1 week. You might get none 1 week. So this week, you're going to get WandaVision episode 7 and The Last Ronin number 2 reviewed, as well as possibly I have some other comment. Like now that the Something Wicked arc is done with Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, I'm going to do a review of that. Same with Stranger Things Dungeons and Dragons. So those are going to have reviews, and those will be on the podcast form for the Nerd Named Mark Reviews, but they will also be video. You will also be able to find them here on the YouTube channel. I don't have the custom URL for YouTube yet. Apparently, I can't get that until I have 100 subscribers. So if you are watching this right now, please hit that subscribe button. Please like, comment. Let me know what you think about the comics I pulled. Are you hyped for Mortal Kombat? What do you think about Diablo? For those of you who are listening, thank you. Leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or subscribe on any other podcast listening platform that you are listening on. But with that being said, this has been episode 71 of A Nerd Named Mark podcast. I thank you guys for coming out, checking out, both listening, watching, this and that. My name is Mark, and I'm a nerd.